Welcome to Life, Laughter, Divorce, episode 22. I am your host, Leanne Linsky.
And I'm the boyfriend.
Welcome back. We're very excited to be here today. We have a lot of good stuff in store for you. Be sure to go on iTunes and Stitcher and do a rate, review, and subscribe. And if you have any thoughts you'd like to share with us, any concerns, any topics you'd like us to discuss on future episodes, let us know over at info@lifelaughterdivorce.com.
We really do appreciate your feedback and your comments and your ideas that you provide us. So please do send us an email. Thank you.
Please do. And I'm excited about today's episode.
Really?
Yeah.
What do we have in store today?
Well, today, last week we talked to Charlie Emery, and she was
amazing.
Yeah.
She had a lot of great ideas and a great attitude to improve your attitude towards life.
Oh,
so
she does.
Amazing. Yeah.
And she's always been like that. She's just a go-getter, and she's just, I don't know, there's just a certain strength about her. I just have so much respect for her. She's fantastic. And one of the things that she really focuses on is keeping a clear mind, know what it is that you want, know what you deserve, make that choice and choose it and go for it. And she kind of helps put things into perspective and cleans up that clutter that's going around up there, right?
Stay focused.
Yeah. And this week's guest, I'm excited because it kind of continues on that theme, and it cleans up the clutter and keeps us focused on the outside of our head within the environment in which we live. Which
really?
Yeah.
So like our own appearance or our work desk or what?
All of that, mostly like how you live, where you spend your time, and your physical environment around you. And
so my cluttered desk right now is...
Oh my gosh, this would just be, her bill would be astronomical. She'd be like, let me just write everything down. Look around here, especially after a weekend of us working frantically. I mean, yeah, it's a little cuckoo.
But that's actually very interesting because you can clear your own physical space, which helps remove some of the, maybe not remove, but helps you, it may, let me restate that, doesn't remind you of some of the things in your past. So for myself, whenever I've been through some pretty big breakups, and I have in my life, nothing like divorce, but
significant.
Breakups to me, yeah.
Yep.
I've went through and changed the physical layout of my apartment. I've changed certain things about myself, different clothes. You just to try to create, I don't know, new memories or try not to remind myself of the things of the past. It's an interesting thing I've done, and I don't think I'm unique in it. I think other friends of mine have done this sort of similar things. How about you? Have you done these things?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I do them. Yes. Every breakup I've had, I've done that and changed as much as possible, it seems. But what's I find fascinating is you just told me all of that. And I would never have thought you were that guy that would do that. In fact, I don't think when I think of the guys in my life, I don't think that any of you would do those things. I don't know why. I just think, I'm like, oh, they wouldn't, like, maybe I don't think it would phase you or something. Not that,
no,
like,
it phases us.
Yeah.
Yeah, breakups phase us. We may play it off like we're the cool guy, but no, there's emotion. You make a connection with somebody, that connection ends. Things back in your place remind you of that person. So it's time to move and change some of those things around to lessen the reminders.
Yeah. I guess it makes sense that people would do it. I guess because when I go through a breakup and stuff, I get so wrapped up in my own head that there's a lot going on up there most times. But and
it makes no sense, ladies and gentlemen. It's random. Hell, she's wearing a pillowcase for
socks.
For socks
my feet
right
were
now.
Cold.
Weird.
So
just weird.
It was to make him laugh. Okay, and it worked. See? All right. And Yeah, ladies, it doesn't have the same effect as a sexy lingerie. Just in case you were wondering what a pillowcase does for you on your feet. I'm just messing around. Not really. Okay, so yeah, I had no idea that everybody else needed to do that too, you know?
No, I think humans, we're connected, and things need to be disconnected sometimes when you're going through a breakup. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm really interested in what our guest this week has to say about those kinds of issues and everything else. So please tell me and our
Yes.
guests, our listeners, about our guest this week.
Yes. In fact, to our listeners, you might want to grab a pen and paper and take some notes on this particular episode because
or listen multiple times.
Yes, because the tips and the information that you're going to get here from our guest is just phenomenal. She's just really good at this. And so Donna Stellhorn is an astrologer and Feng Shui expert with more than 20 years experience. She wrote a monthly column on Feng Shui for the newspaper The Light for 8 years. Donna's first Feng Shui book was published in Europe in 1996, and since then she has written 12 books, including Feng Shui Form and the best-selling booklet Sage and Smudge, Clearing Your Personal Space. Her annual Chinese astrology series, which include Chinese Astrology 2017, Year of the Fire Rooster, is the third best-selling Chinese astrology series in the world. Her upcoming book, Plate Size Matters, combines Feng Shui with weight loss, where she describes how she used Feng Shui techniques to lose 35 pounds and keep it off. This book will be available in 2017. She has been heard on Coast to Coast AM with George Noory and has been seen on NECN's New England Dream House. She spoke at the Woman of Wisdom Conference in Seattle and the prestigious Build Boston Architectural Conference 3 years in a row. In the last year, she has lectured at Western Digital, Cineron, Brian Jeanette Architecture, Vision Solutions, the Rancho Santa Fe Water District, Warner Records, and the Marriott Corporation. In 2018, she will be speaking at the United Astrology Conference in Chicago. She is a Feng Shui Red Ribbon professional and on the board of the International Feng Shui Guild, and she is a board member of NCGR San Diego. A little-known fact about Donna is that she has done stand-up comedy on stages in California and Arizona and actually got a few laughs. Now, I believe that Donna got more than just a few laughs because she's pretty funny. No wonder we're friends, right? And Donna currently lives in Orange County, California with her standard poodle, Giles.
She sounds amazing.
She is amazing. And she's funny. She's a really cool woman. And she's extremely knowledgeable in this particular topic of Feng Shui and clearing your personal space. So let's hear it for Donna Stellhorn, our guest this week. Without further ado.
All right, so Donna, welcome. Thanks for being on Life, Laughter, Divorce today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Leanne, I'm so happy to be here.
This is wonderful. Well, I'm excited because I've known you for a very long time, and I'm sure I've asked you this question and many similar to this about clearing the energy around relationships many times, and we've had so many good conversations. But do you want to give a little bit of background to our listeners about what exactly you do?
Well, yeah, because a lot of people do ask, what's the difference between clearing, like decluttering, and clearing energy? And how do you even know if energy needs to be cleared? And one of the things that I find is very interesting is, somebody gets out of a relationship and they're so gung-ho. They're ready to jump right in. They just need to find that person. And then the time seems to stretch out there because what they don't realize is that they're actually kind of a little shell-shocked about coming out of the relationship. And so that energy is, oh my gosh, how can I protect myself from ever being in a relationship again? And that translates as negative energy that can settle in your home, especially in the bedroom, in the living room, or, wherever you were feeling like you're sad. Also, if the person lived with you, where you guys were fighting. And so that's all of that energy can build up in a house. And people even say to me, well, what happens if, I left that house? The person's never lived with me in the house. Well, still, it was in your sheets. It was in your clothes. It was, you brought it with you in the memorabilia. So clearing energy is a really important step, something that our ancestors used to do on a regular basis that we now think of as, well, if I can't see it and touch it and clean it, how do I clear energy? You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So clearing energy, is this part of actual Feng Shui and part of the philosophy of what you do when you go in and you Feng Shui someone's home?
Well, somewhat, but clearing traditions are actually in a lot of different cultures. Specifically, I talk a lot about burning sage, the actual plants, the one we use when we make our Thanksgiving turkey. We burn sage, and that has its roots in Native American culture for clearing energy. So in Feng Shui, oftentimes we're less concerned with clearing and more in setting things up so that it brings in the opportunities that we want. But of course, we want to do this in order. There's no point in setting up and placing cures to bring in positive relationship energy if we're trying to brick up the door to prevent anybody from coming in to hurt us again. So our first step is to clear energy.
Right. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Sorry. And because I know a lot of people will lump all of this into one category rather than realizing they come from different backgrounds and different places. And also, there might be a lot of preconceived notions about what it is you do, right? So you probably get a lot of that, but really it's not anything to do with how do you say it? Like believing one type of thing or the other and believing in Feng Shui or being spiritual. It's more about a lot of it to do with the act of doing it, right?
Well, yeah, people used to say, well, if I don't believe in it, will it work? And these sort of questions. But and I have other people come to me and say, I completely ignore my environment. I never notice anything. A lot of guys will say this to me. And yet studies over and over show that we're very susceptible to how like a retail store is laid out, how a shopping mall is laid out, how even, if you even compare the energy of a bank versus a casino, two places that hold our money, a bank is all decorated with the idea that you have to be quiet, respectful, that you have to walk in a certain way. And a casino's all decorated to say, yes, if you don't put your money into this little machine, you're going to lose out. You're going to, miss out big time. So our environment affects us on so many different levels. And so when you put your key in the door, you have a certain feeling about what it is when you walk in that house. And it might be relief because, wow, I'm off the freeway. As you get into the house, you may feel the sadness of the previous relationship. And that's what we can clear.
Right. Okay. So this makes a lot of sense because I know I'm super familiar with what you do. And even some of this, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, because I don't think about it because I just know that it works. But a lot of people who may have never experienced this before, have never talked to someone like you who is an expert in this field, may have some hesitation. And I think what you explain is really, it comes down to those feelings. Like you go into different environments and we just take so many things for granted that we don't recognize how things are set up and strategically placed really play into things. It's almost like putting it into looking at marketing, right? Yes. How you sell yourself, how someone else is selling themselves, how a business is doing that. So that makes a lot of sense, putting it in terms a lot of people who aren't familiar would understand. And I know that talking to you, you have a lot of people who come to you with relationship issues. So this is a huge one. And you are fantastic about helping people kind of put things in priority order and kind of point the obvious out that we don't really see when we're wrapped up in grieving over some sort of relationship, especially divorce.
Yes, thank you for saying. It's like when you open your front door, if you see, the first thing you see is the sofa the two of you bought together. You may not consciously say, oh, that's the sofa that me and Bill bought together. You are, though, feeling that energy. And so there are different ways to clear it so you don't have to discard the sofa, although if that's an option, that would be a quick way to shift the energy. But it could also be, a bedspread. It could be a little knickknack. It could be the T-shirt that you've kept that just reminds you of the past. And then what comes up is the hesitation. Do I want to do this again? Yes. So one of the things is to take the step of actually decluttering what you can declutter. Is it possible to remove objects that you bought together? Can you replace them? Or, can you get a sofa recovered? Changing out even the pillows sometimes will change it enough to shift how you feel about it. Do you have a lot of artwork that you bought together? Because those can not only bring up the person, but also the place where you were and your experience with that person. So it can bring up a lot of memories. So the first step is just to get rid of the physical objects, if that's possible.
And when we get rid of those things, a lot of people will give it away, give it to friends, throw it away. What is your thoughts on doing that and how to go about getting rid of things?
Well, that's a very sensitive thing to ask, because I did have somebody who said that she had such a terrible breakup and she had the dress that she had met him in. And she said, I couldn't even bring myself to donate it, to give somebody else that energy. I actually had to throw it away because I didn't want that energy to be transferred to another person. And so sometimes we have to go to that step. But oftentimes in the process of us donating to a place, and I recommend this very much, if you're going over to Goodwill or any place where you're going to buy used stuff, which I think is great because it brings us closer to zero waste, is super important to clear that object when it comes into your place, because you don't know, it may be been in a house where a terrible breakup happens.
Right.
In that energy. So that leads us to step 2, and that is to clear energetically the place. And there's several different ways you can do that. You can do a house blessing where you actually bring in a spiritual person to do a ceremony. But you can also do it yourself. And as I mentioned before, with sage, you can get a thing called a smudge stick. Should send some pictures of these so that show people.
Great idea.
So you can find these at Whole Foods and I think Sprouts. Most health food stores have them, but also online. But it's a bundle of sage and you light it. And there's been studies that show that it actually clears the air, almost like an antibiotic would clear your body.
Really?
Yeah. So I know.
Wow.
It does work. And when you walk through the house with this smoke, that's coming from this lit sage, and you will actually start to feel like things are being lifted, that the energy is lighter. Now, there are some people who are too sensitive to scent. And so they say, well, I can't have something burning in the house like this. And that's fine. What I did for one client is we took the sage leaves and we brewed a tea and then put that in a spray bottle and just spritz that around. It still has the scent and it still clears very well. And this is great for situations where, like I said, you can't burn something, or if you have very delicate fabrics. If you have silk curtains, you don't necessarily want to be burning sage.
Right. Okay.
That's just one way to clear things.
Very cool. What are some of the other things like in a relationship? So like if step 1 is getting rid of these objects and making sure that we do a thorough job of clearing it, whether depending on if we want to pass that on to somebody or not. And then bringing, things in, or before we bring anything in, clearing that air. If someone's uncomfortable with like doing something more like a ritual, like burning sage or something, I think one time, a long time ago, you had also mentioned like playing happy music.
Yes. It's you can shift the energy by, moving your furniture around, especially if you lived in the house with the person. Try the sofa in a new spot, play some happy music, get some different colors going in the place, just switch out a couple of pieces so the place looks different. And that can help shift the energy. In addition, remember, like with your bed, if you slept together in the bed, what you can do is just a regular clearing, which is where you first vacuum the mattress very thoroughly.
Especially if he was really hairy, right?
Absolutely. And then sprinkle baking soda, just regular household baking soda on there. You can use a little sifter, and so sprinkle it evenly, leave that on there for a couple hours, and then vacuum that up. And that will take out that energy. And what happens is you'll sleep better. You won't feel like when you lay down the picture of them will pop into your head right away. You will actually think of happy thoughts and moving forward.
Nice. Well, that's really good to know. And it probably takes out any scents, I would think, with baking soda.
Yes, it really helps that, because we don't recognize how even a microscopic amount of their scent can bring a memory up. We may not be conscious that we're smelling their scent, but we can.
Right.
And that's what makes a real difference. And so that's why, if it's in the budget, one of the ways to really attract a new relationship is to get a new bed.
Yes. That would, yeah.
Yes.
I could see that. That would make a lot of sense. Yeah. But if they can't afford that, then baking soda is definitely in a budget of most people.
And then in Feng Shui, we divide the house up into different areas of a person's life. And this is one of the schools of Feng Shui. And so it works in some houses. It doesn't work in all houses. But in a lot of places, the far right corner of the house is your relationship area. And why I say it doesn't always work is sometimes there isn't a far right corner because maybe the house is L-shaped, or maybe it's a bathroom or a laundry room. But if it's, say, your bedroom or part of the living room, then you want to pay particular attention to what's in that corner. So if it's only the TV in that corner, then your future relationship is the TV, is that, and that's not as beneficial.
No.
But what could do is place artwork that shows like a couple walking on the beach or people out socializing. You could place pictures of your friends where you're all gathered together for parties. You could do two little teddy bears in an embrace. Placing things in that corner then stimulates the energy to bring in romance.
Okay. All right. Well, that's really good to know. So now what if you do have a bathroom in that corner?
Well, fortunately, in your bedroom, you will have a right-hand corner there. So if it's not in the whole house, then go to the bedroom and stand with your back to the door, looking into the room, and then figure out what's in that far right corner. Okay. And number one, I noticed that people who are hesitant about relationships will have clutter in that area. Clutter specifically helps protect us. It keeps stuff from coming to us. And so when we feel that we deep down don't really want an opportunity to come to us, we'll have clutter.
Right. And there are some people who have more than others for sure. So that's good to know. I'm going to be checking out my place all afternoon, looking and see where I have anything left over. So good. So getting rid of clutter is definitely a must, and putting objects that represent maybe romance and things like that in that area is helpful.
Yes.
Right.
I've found people who will go for years after a relationship and really struggle finding the new love because they keep popping up with items that were from that past relationship. There was a woman, I went into her house, and she must have had 1,000 little owl statues. And I said, wow, you really like owls. I mean, there were little tiny ones, and there were doorknobs that were owls. The light poles were owls. There were owls on the towels and everything. And apparently this guy that she'd been seeing gave her an owl a day for their entire relationship. And then one day he vanished. I mean, just literally gone. And she was so heartbroken. And yet she said 4 years after she'd opened a drawer, there's another owl. So it's really important to be very thorough. Look at your place. It helps you take that old relationship and put it into the past. When you go through your stuff and say, you know what, I don't need all these pictures on my phone. They can maybe be archived. I don't need to have this memorabilia. It can be boxed up.
Right. Yeah, I'd pull out an owl and I'd be like, who is this from? Sorry, bad pun. I know the boyfriend's rolling his eyes right now hearing this, but I couldn't pass it up. But you know what? You make a good point about cell phones, removing those pictures and maybe archiving them or deleting them altogether. And is it the same for Facebook and any online social media platforms?
Yes, it is really hard unless you're at the point where you are excited about going into a new relationship. You can't wait for the lessons the universe has for you. And so few of us want to do that again. So one of the things that we have to remember as we go forward is we did survive this last relationship. We went through it, you know. And so as we then look forward, we can say, I'm going to be okay. But why have the reminders come up every time we see Facebook? Every time it's there.
Right.
When it is so easy to archive those things.
And a new person, and they're probably going to wonder, is she or he with somebody? Are they still with this person? And that could probably raise some red flags on the other side, I would think.
This brings up a point that is a little bit more about the person rather than the place, but it is so helpful as you do let go of the items that belong to the two of you, or very specifically belong to that person, to wish them well. Because if you send them away wishing them well, you do release them. But if you are thinking, well, I hope they really get what's coming to them, you are in a way holding on to them. There's a little energy cord that's still connecting from them to you so that you can find out if they did get what was coming to them. And so to cut those cords is to send off this stuff and the pictures and all of that, wishing them that they have the happiest life ever, because then you can too.
That's a really good point, because I know a lot of people who do just the opposite. They either wish the worst for the person, or they continue to stalk the person, hoping they see that something bad is happening in return, you know? So that's a really good note to be able to let go with. That is a powerful thing in itself. Yes,
we're not so aware these days, and again, our ancestors were, of the energy cords that exist between us and people and us and our stuff. We women, we understand that there's an energy cord between us and our handbag. And if we stand up and walk away from the handbag, we suddenly go, oh my goodness, where's my handbag? Well, sometimes though, when we are not wanting to connect with ourselves, when we're upset with ourselves, when we're feeling distressed, even small things like that, like our handbag, which is a sense of our identity, we don't feel that connection anymore. And so then we walk away, and that can cause our handbag to be stolen or lost. So if you lose things that are about your identity, it can be that you're so wrapped up still in the old relationship that you haven't become the new you yet. So you look for that as well.
Right. That is, so true. Because there is that energy that we tie ourselves to, and not being able to fully let go of things, or we're so obsessed or used to it being there.
Yes.
What can people do to help get rid of that?
Well, that one's challenging, because there might be that part where you hope that maybe that person could come back and change and the relationship could happen again. And so we're in our minds saying, well, I'm just leaving the door open, in case they go through some sort of metamorphosis and become a decent person and want to come back. I don't want to miss that opportunity. And that's where it would be better to cut that cord instead. So long ago, I was in a relationship and it wasn't working out. And I knew that it had to end. But I am a person who tends to hold on in that optimism. So he went off to visit Alaska. And so he was pretty far away. And so I actually visualized the cord between us, that sort of bright light, that feeling like, if your back is to the door and they walk in, it's them. That's the cord. And I cut it. And I said, I'm just taking imaginary scissors and I'm cutting that cord. And he was a sensitive fellow. He came back and he said, what did you do? And my reaction was, I don't even know you. If you want to introduce yourself to me, that's great. But the connection's not there anymore.
Wow.
So,
that's pretty significant.
Yes.
And you mentioned something too about this, that our ancestors, they were much better at this. And I would imagine so, because I even think back, 20, 30 years ago, we didn't have all these connections we do today. Like today, you meet somebody at a party or at a grocery store, you're friends now with them for life on Facebook. Yes. Whereas in the past, you meet somebody and you ran into them a few times, you never saw them again. You're like, hey, what happened to so-and-so? What was their name? And you only had so many people within your circle.
You did.
Now
could come in and out of your circle. And when they left, they could leave forever. And you got used to the idea that somebody could leave.
Yes.
And that would be okay. That was survivable.
That was normal. And now I feel like we're almost overwhelmed with the number of people we have to remain in contact with. And if you live a full life and dated a lot of people over, a few decades, that's a lot of people to keep on your Facebook, rating numbers there. That's not the way it used to be.
Yes. And, it's sometimes, some of us, and this is seen in our astrological chart, that some of us, when something ends, the other person falls off the edge of the earth. They never existed. It's like the pyramids. Their name is stricken from it. And other people, they don't do that. They want to become friends. And so what happens when you have that incompatibility as a couple, where one says, you're dead to me, and the other says, well, let's still be friends. And so these are the types of things where if you can clear the energy, you can at least start from that even place where you're not so emotionally tied to, that they're going to respond to a Christmas card or that they're going to speak well of you on Facebook. You're going to say, you know what? It's okay. They're moving on.
Mm-hmm. Right. Wow. I love talking to you about this stuff because it's so helpful, and yet it's sometimes the hardest things to do or to address. And we avoid them for a period of time before we're actually ready to do it. It's going through the grieving process of something and then doing it, and like in divorces, especially, we also have a lot of people, so many people have children that they share between these spouses, and the children goes and spends time with the other parent and comes back and brings that energy back with them. I've heard from so many single parents, like, my kid comes back to me and it takes a day to get them back on our own schedule again. And then we go through this whole process in the next week.
Yes. Yeah. And that is very, very challenging. And then, of course, the child also can bring artifacts, dad bought me this t-shirt or mom got me this book. And so that comes into your home. Those things can be cleared. And even, the kids don't even have to know about it. You're about to put the t-shirt in the wash, give it a little spray with a smudge spray, and then put it into the wash and get that extra energy a little bit more separated. Right. But also remember that this sort of thing teaches us how to make adjustments, how to shift for different occasions. And this makes us stronger and more versatile. It makes us better when we're able to deal with those different energies coming in.
Yeah. And even when now clearing the energy, so we know kind of how to do it in our home and everything, but what if you're also, coming back to this idea that kids come home and they bring this energy out, but if we have to now have contact with our ex, in doing so, and, not everything is, as much as we'd like it to be, is amicable, but, we have those situations where you just feel gross after talking to that person again. What do we,
You can absolutely smudge yourself.
Okay.
So you can smudge yourself. You can also clear energy in the shower or in the bath. One of the things to do in the shower is to take some sea salt, put it in a washcloth, and just let the water and the salt water just squeeze it over you. So over your shoulders, the back of your neck, that sort of thing. That will help you release the energy. You can also release the energy just by making a cup of tea, because as the steam goes up, just see that the negative energy just rises up and dissipates. Any of these techniques will help you clear yourself, and so that you don't feel like you're, like, oh, that was awful.
Right. And tea and water. I mean, water in general has a very calming effect.
It does. It does. It's one of those things that helps us clear, because we see it flowing. It's clear. It allows us to feel like we can clear.
Right.
So, and then also just to remind yourself that if you continually blame yourself for getting into that relationship, it's time to forgive yourself. You may have gotten into that relationship so you could have those wonderful children. You may have gotten into that relationship to finish some karma with this person. You may have gotten into the relationship just so you could learn and experience things. And once you learn those, you won't have to deal with that person anymore. So, forgive yourself for getting into the relationship in the first place.
And when we do this and we go through some of these clearing things and getting rid of, things from our past and making room for new, if we don't go back and clear these things, I feel like we have a much better chance of just repeating the same thing over, because we're not making any change. And I feel like the representation of change on the outside and in our environment reflects the change on the inside of ourselves as we go through this process.
Yeah, my first sign is when a client says to me, oh, yes, John and I are completely done. I met a new John. And I said, that's the same name? So if the new person has the same name, it's already a sign that you are repeating the energy, because there are enough names out there that you don't have to go out with the same name. And then the second question I always ask is, how is this new person like your old person? And most people, they just quickly blurt out, there's nothing like them. But look carefully and see, because you do want to take the good qualities that person had and bring them forward, just like the bad qualities. And so find, oh yeah, you know what they do share? They share the same sense of humor, and I love that sense of humor. Or they share the fact that they remember my birthday. That's something I value, because that shows growth.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
When people, when they're going through in new relationships and they, start going into, as we go into new relationships, we start going to other people's place. You finally get to that point where you show up at their place and you're checking things out. Are there signs we should be looking for that maybe they're not over past relationships?
Oh, yes. You can see that if they have pictures of the past person up, that would be a very clear sign.
That would be bad.
Yes. But in addition, if they're just not making space for you, if you get there and they have so much stuff in their life already that there's not a place for you to hang your coat. There's not a place for you to put some of your, toiletries or things like that. Then they're maybe saying they have room in their life for you, but they're not really making space for you. And that can be out of trying to protect themselves from getting into another relationship. Right.
So I guess when you go and you look, I've heard you say before, if you don't have a second nightstand on the other side of your bed, if things aren't equally balanced in certain places, there's a shift. And I always remember that when I look at, my own places. am I prepared for someone to come in? What if someone were to also come in my place? What would they see about me?
Right. Again, that's kind of like them. Are they taking a step to make you feel comfortable there? I mean, if there's no place for you to place a glass of water when you're going to bed, or, to have a little clock radio or something, you put your cell phone, well, then, and those have to go on the floor, they're not really making space for you in their life. This is something that's easy to remedy.
Yeah. It's just by moving some things around. In fact, I met a woman this past weekend who said she has the theory of pink. And she says, whenever we go through a breakup or we move out and get our own place, we decorate it everything the way we want to. And it's all pink and it's all blue if you're, into blue and whatever it is. And then someone comes over and they're like, it doesn't even look like you'd be willing to move everything because everything's so perfect and in its place.
Yes. And, that's the balance of Feng Shui, because sometimes people take Feng Shui and they say, well, everything has to be in its perfect place all the time. And that's not really what makes Feng Shui work. What really creates opportunity in Feng Shui is to have that ability to change the place, to move things around. And so to show them that you're welcoming them is to have vacant spaces for that person to be. Have a side of the closet open where he will eventually put his clothes, even if you are going to live in his house rather than yours. Create some space for the things that they love, and then you are going to be able to welcome them into your life.
Yeah. Boy, I'm looking around my place. I'm like, boy, I better make some changes. I need to throw some things out.
Well, that's the great thing. It is really easy to do.
Yeah.
Because you have this goal of bringing in the new person. And so maybe you're the new person that you want to have this life where you sit on the sofa and you share a meal together and you watch your favorite movies. Well, if you only have an easy chair and there's not two places for people to sit, then you're not going to create that vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So thinking in those terms, or maybe you never want to eat in front of the TV, that you'll want to share meals together, but you have no dining room, no space where you would eat together.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that you need to shift.
Yeah, that's pretty significant. And even, I think about being married and everything, there were certain items that I never did, that took a while to get rid of, like a ring. Because it's so small, you just throw it away somewhere and you forget about it. But every now and then it rolls up. And it's like, what do I do with this? Does anybody else really, same thing, right?
Significant items of value that you want to hold on to, work to clear those. And you can clear those, as I said, with the sage. Some items you can clear with salt, though some gemstones could react to salt, so you want to be careful. But what you could do is take an object like a ring that you do really love, that you want to keep, and then set it on a plate and then put a ring of salt around it so the salt's not touching the ring itself. And leave that there for at least a day. And then try wearing the ring and see if you feel comfortable. Now, we know if a person feels comfortable with the ring on, because if they don't, they'll play with the ring. If they play with the ring, if they're constantly taking it on and off, if they're twisting it around, they're not feeling comfortable about what's associated with the ring. Then it's still not clear. So, and then keep trying to clear it either through the sage or the salt. And if it won't clear, sometimes things won't clear. There's just too much energy attached. Then you will have to sell the ring or at least have it remade into a different ring.
Yeah. I actually had a relative who took all of her jewelry that she had received from her ex-husband and melted it down into her divorce set. And she recreated all new things to start a new chapter in life. And I always thought that was such a smart move for her, because she said, why do I want to get rid of all of it? I love it. I just don't love it, what it represents anymore. And so that was something.
That reminds me, when we're creating space, we as women want to leave space on our hand, especially our ring finger. If you wear a ring on the finger that you would normally wear a wedding ring, you're not creating space for a wedding band. So, and therefore blocking a relationship. And that's perfectly fine if you just want to date, if you just want to go have fun. But if you're really looking for a relationship, because I've seen some women say, well, I want to attract a ring here, so I'm wearing a ring here, but that's not creating space.
Okay. And what about women like, or men? What is the most common thing that we overlook probably the most?
In clearing?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It's those pictures that are on Facebook and on the cell phone, just like you said.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that really sneak up on us, especially because now Facebook will show you a picture from 2 or 3 years
Oh, yeah.
ago. Or, the phone will say, hey, you took this when you were at this location before, and that brings the memory full on. So that's what you really need to clear.
Yeah. And that's a time consuming process, because if you're a Facebook junkie, you're on there all the time. So that stuff can add up, and you got to scroll through a lot. So, grab a glass of wine.
Yes.
There's that. And what about, people who end up buying someone's used rings or someone's used wedding dress or bridesmaid's dress in their wedding? Because I know there's a lot of resale and recyclable things. Is it okay to do that as long as you clear it?
As long as you clear it, yes. And unless you know the history of it. And this is why, people ask me, well, is the place I'm moving into a good place? And the quickest way to tell is to find out what the person's experience was in the place before you. If they met somebody wonderful and went off and got married and moved to a better house and got a better job, great. I don't have to do anything. The place has good energy already. But if the person had difficult relationships, if they left a house because of a divorce, you definitely want to clear it. And the same with a wedding dress. How did the marriage fare? If you don't know, you definitely want to clear it before you use it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point. That's probably why a lot of people didn't ask me to be in their weddings.
But also consider, we get a lot of wedding dresses that get passed down.
Yes. Yeah.
And how was your parents' relationship? Was it good if you're going to wear mom's wedding dress?
Mm-hmm. And even with rings, like come from the other side, great grandmothers and things like that.
How was their marriage?
Yes.
Was it happy and joyful, or, were they really living separate lives and not speaking to each other for decades?
Right. That's an interesting point, because, I look at, just looking at businesses, when you go down the same street for many years, you're like, oh, that used to be this. That one changes over all the time. Whatever's there never works out. Right. And I think back to that, because when I had lived with somebody, before and the relationship fell apart, I later learned that the people before us had the same scenario.
Yes. Oftentimes, if you live on a T intersection where you're at the top of the T and the street is pointing right toward your house, it creates so much energy in the house that fights can ensue and there's general stress. So I had visited a house like this, and in addition, there was a gigantic tree right in line with the front door, also not a good sign. And I said, this is not a good relationship house. And he said, so then my filing for divorce today was correct, I guess.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, that's what I would have said. I don't like to go in and say, oh, you're living in a divorce house, but yeah, that's what I was thinking.
What are some of the things that are obvious? Like you mentioned, like living at the T of a street, like at the top of the T. What are some obvious other signs that would be something we could look for?
Well, where you have a real demarcation between where one person is going to be doing their work, such as a separated kitchen, or unfortunately, the man cave tends to separate the couple, and therefore they don't have as much interaction. They don't feel, at least one may not feel like the other is paying attention to them. Everything is being done for one person and not the other. So look for places where you are almost forced to be together so that you can learn to work things out, work out the small things. So you don't have to wait until those are big things.
Interesting. And a lot of people, you mentioned the man cave. A lot of people would think that's a healthy thing, is that you have your own space to go to and I have my own space to go to.
And
Right.
that's okay for some periods of time. But if they're always there,
Then that's,
yes. And, in my upbringing, we started in a small house because houses were small then. But as the family grew, they added on to the house over and, bigger and bigger and bigger. And so what happened was that mother was in one section of the house, father was in the other section of the house. And at some point, they just went, I don't even know who you are anymore.
wow. Yeah.
And this is a problem with living in our gigantic houses.
Yeah. With a bathroom for every bedroom and separate living areas and all that stuff. You're absolutely right. It does give everybody a lot of separation and independence that you wouldn't normally have.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So this is incredible.
Yeah, we also have this anomaly that is happening today where more and more people are saying, I am okay with living alone. And so we go through this thing when we get out of a relationship, we get the joy of living alone, where we can do anything we want at any time. And we can, eat ice cream naked in front of the TV if we want all night. And then a relationship comes in and we think, I'm not going to get to do that anymore. And so, in generations past, living alone was the worst punishment imaginable. Being shunned from the tribe meant you were going to be turned out into the wilderness and eaten by a bear. And now we look forward to this idea that I get to be alone in the house. I get that freedom. So remember, we're not just trying to move away from the past relationship into a new one, but we're trying to overcome the happiness we might feel of just living alone.
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot of people, well, for years I lived by myself, and then I ended up having roommates and things like that after my divorce, which I think was really helpful because it's super easy living by myself. But then once I have a roommate, it changes everything. I have to share. I have to learn to be social. I have to learn to get along, even when we don't want to. And I think that is a healthy thing because I look at some friends who lived by themselves forever. Mm-hmm. And I think the longer that they go that direction, the harder it is for them to even adjust to the idea of someone coming in and staying with them for a period of time.
So one helpful thing to do is to sit in different rooms of your house and picture how life would be with another person there. If you were cooking a meal, picture how that person might be behind you making the salad and reaching by you to grab, the pepper, or, how you might ask them to hand you a pot holder or things like that. If you or wake up or at different times, if you are a night owl and you want to stay up very late, picture how that would work coming to bed while the other person might be asleep and how that might be okay, how you could work that out. If you walk through your house, visualizing how a person could be in there, you're calling a new love to you.
Right. Kind of like a little self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. You're welcoming in a new person, that new energy. But most of the time we're walking around our house thinking, well, I don't want to give up this freedom. How can I have a relationship in my life that's wonderful and just everything that I want, and yet not have them in my space?
Right. There was actually a couple I heard about that they had been married, but they both had their own homes next to each other, and that didn't work out.
Yeah. Sometimes it does. I had a couple that actually, because of their jobs, lived in different countries.
Oh, wow.
And so they would come together once a month for these wild, incredible weekends that was just so intense and so passionate. But it definitely was a difficult relationship. They had to be very understanding because they had, 28 days apart. And so if there was any jealousy on any side, it could just blossom into, oh my gosh, what's that person doing without me?
Right. Right.
Or, are they having fun without me?
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to this. And I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of options that people can have. They can, a lot of things that are easily within anybody's budget, right? To take care of things. Did we miss any? Do you have more?
sea salt and even that Himalayan pink salt can go a long way to helping you clear energy. Just recognize that salt will take something down to a neutral state, not positive or negative. So if you add a pinch of salt to your cleaning solutions, it takes away any positive or any negative energy. And then you can add positive in by bringing in floral scents, bringing in flowers, playing the happy music, things like that. The sage actually clears the energy and brings in positive energy. And so it's kind of like a dual process, but it is a little bit more time consuming to do it. So because you need to find the sage and light it and carry the sage stick through the house. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes, when people are coming out of a relationship, I would recommend they clear the energy once a week until you really literally forget to do it. Because at that point, you are not conscious of negative energy anymore. It has dissipated enough. But also, if you cleared for a while and then months go by and you're still not getting the relationship that you want, you're still attracting people who are unavailable, people who are not wanting you when you want them, or vice versa. Remember, that means that you're still blocked and there is some negative energy that you still have to clear.
Right. This is good stuff.
Thank you.
This is good. How are we doing on I know you had a whole list of things prepared. We cover.
Yes, there's lots of different Feng Shui cures that you can place. Now, what a cure is, mm-hmm. is it's a symbol of what you want to attract. And so oftentimes we will have a whole house filled with what we see as just art or knickknacks, but they're actually symbols of your life. And so when a Feng Shui person goes in, they can actually read what's going on in your life. So, for example, I went into a house and the big painting that was there when I walked in was of this rope bridge, and the fog had enshrouded it so we couldn't see the other side of the bridge. And I said, wow, that's pretty scary. Every time you go into a new situation, whether it be a financial situation or a love situation, you're taking such a risk. You don't know what's on the other side, and you have to walk across a rope bridge. And she said, yeah, doing new things is really scary. And so she'd gotten that painting so she could overcome fear, but I felt like it was just reinforcing the fear.
And a constant reminder of what, yeah,
versus maybe having a picture of a yellow brick road with a big castle there. So easy. We could the roads, we see it, there's flowers, we know the destination's going to be this beautiful place.
Right.
Why not put something in there that makes it easier?
And it's also, is it true, like if you have pictures of people that are by themselves versus things in twos?
Yes, it's very true. When you want to attract love into your life, make sure you have lots of pairs of things. And they can be matched pairs if you want somebody who's your equal, or if you're looking for somebody who supports you in some areas where you support them in other areas, then one piece could be larger or smaller, or two objects that are the same but maybe different colors. One woman, I was in her bedroom and she had this picture on the wall of, it was a forest, and there was a little teddy bear, a child's teddy bear that was really well worn, and it was sitting there against the tree, and it was all leaned over, and it was starting to rain. And I thought, that's the saddest picture I've ever seen in my life. And I said, what's up with the picture? And she said, well, my grandmother, she said that this picture reminded her of me. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, she thinks you're going to be alone. Now you think you're going to be alone.
Oh no.
Teddy bear is abandoned and out there all in the elements all by itself. I said, we got to do something about this. So, and things like that, they're going to be fine perhaps in another location. Maybe she could put it in a hallway or something. But something that emotionally charged cannot be in a bedroom and help you attract love.
Right. And even, what about stuffed animals?
Stuffed animals sometimes can be okay, if they are given to you by that person from the past. They definitely need to be cleared. I saw a client just about a month ago, and there was a big frog on her bed. And I was like, whoa, what's up with the frog? And when I do that, that's because it does have energy. You know, you see all these objects in a room, and there'll be something that just jumps out at you, literally like a frog. And she said, oh, a person, you know, from the past gave it to her, and she was still hoping this guy would come back. And so we talked about clearing the frog, and it was soft fabric, so we didn't want to burn the sage, but what she did was she took holy water and she sprinkled it on the frog. So she just went to a church and got a bottle of holy water and did the sprinkling. When I went back, I looked through the room and I was focused on other things. And then when I turned, I went, oh, the frog is still here. I didn't feel the frog anymore because the frog had been cleared. So then she can keep the frog.
Right. Okay.
But I will say, if you have a bed that is covered with Beanie Babies, not making space for a man to come into your life. In addition, if you want a relationship where you're seen as an equal and he comes in and there is a giant stuffed frog on your bed, then there is that feeling like you're the child, that you're not an adult. And I could go even as far to say this person is saying, I'm only going to get frogs. I'm not going to get a prince.
Very symbolic. But then on the other hand, if you have a 16-year-old daughter, you better load that bed up with Beanie Babies and all kinds of stuffed animals.
I remember Beanie Babies. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, that's it. That's interesting. What about, talking about loading the bed up with these Beanie Babies and stuff, I know a lot of us women like to have pillows everywhere.
Yes. And, we do all kinds of self-comforting gestures when we're feeling stressed and upset. And there is a line between having a few pillows on there as something decorative or having it so filled with pillows. So if you're craving lots of pillows, it can mean that you're feeling like you're needing comfort. If we find the comfort in pillows, how are we going to call in the lover to comfort us? So keeping an eye on that. It's the same with the pink, where your friend said, oh, I'm going to just, bathe this area in pink. It's to say, well, no man would enter then. Yeah. Because it'll be all pink. Yeah. And so he will know it's not his domain. He will know that he cannot come in.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of people that are the opposite when they come in and they see pillows and they're like, oh my, how do I even approach this? What do I do with all this stuff?
Yes. So again, a few pillows can be fun for sure. But if it takes you 10 minutes to undo the bed just to get into it, it's not really great feng shui. it's not efficient.
No, that's a very good point. If you have to rearrange your room to get ready for bed, there's other things going on for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. This is really good stuff. It makes us think because, I think, when I originally set things up, like after a breakup or you do kind of go through this, I think it's on the forefront of our mind. And then as we go through life and things get busy and months go by and time goes by, all of a sudden things start collecting here or there. You move things around and it all seems to find its own way somewhere else. And like I love what you said too about feng shui. It's not everything being in this perfect space all the time, but being in a flow, right?
Yes. And, people, they like to come back at me and say, well, not everything in my life is a symbol, but we tend to surround ourselves, our external, with what's going on inside. And what's going on outside affects us inside. So it's this kind of symbiotic relationship where as we shift outside, we shift inside. But also as we shift inside, we will want something different on the outside. And that's why what's in your room is a symbol. There will be a point in your life, and maybe in her life, where she says, you know what, I am not a child and I don't need a giant green frog on my bed. I could just have a normal bed.
Yeah.
You don't need this, this thing to hold on to. And maybe at one point then the frog will move to the top of a dresser and then it's top of a closet shelf. And then one day it goes off maybe to a relative or even off to the donation pile. It's we shift and grow. If we hold on to things from the past, things that we know are not good symbols, we're just doing it to protect ourselves. And that's okay. Just recognize that that's the reason the love isn't coming.
Right. Oh, very well said. That makes so much sense. Thank you.
Sure.
That is really, it does. It makes so much sense that we are our environment. We are a true reflection of that. So is there anything else that you wanted to add for our listeners? Because I think we've shared so much good information. I love this stuff, and I love talking to you about it. You're so knowledgeable. You've been doing this for a very long time, and are an expert in your field. So is there anything else that you wanted to add that you think they should know? And
yeah, one thing that, when they feel like, yes, I am really ready for new love, then I think it's very helpful to write 2 or 3 qualities that person will have that they will demonstrate when you meet them. They will give you the signal that they could be someone that you'd want to go out with. So we're not saying that they're going to be the end all be all, that this is just a couple of qualities that they could demonstrate to you right at the beginning to say, yeah, they're worth a date or two. You take that list and you place that by your front door. It can be hidden away in a drawer. It can be taped underneath a table, or you could display it if you wanted to in a bowl. So you can place it where you want, but place it near the front door. The front door is where all new opportunity comes in. So make your list, and then when you're out in the world, you find that who connects to that list. And the thing should be quite specific, like, somebody who opens a door for you, or somebody who actually looks you in the eye and says, hi, how are you doing? Some quality, again, that they can demonstrate right there, not words like trustworthy, because how could they demonstrate that when you just meet them?
Oh, right.
But something that is something you could experience, that they say, wow, you look really great today. Or they make you laugh, something there, just 1 or 2, 3 things tops.
That are, something that's really tangible, measurable outcomes, right? That you're expecting from somebody, rather than these vague terms like someone with a good sense of humor or they're kind, right? Yes. Because
those lead to, it's too difficult to determine whether they're safe to go out with on a first or second date. And if we can't get the first or second date done, we can't get to the relationship.
Good point. Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think, talking to friends over the years, we tend to think, oh, I want these qualities. And we think so abstract rather than specific.
Yes. And those help us to then start the process of seeing whether the person is somebody that we would say, okay, well, first date went by, no real red flags. And I think it's super important to say, was there any red flags? And you might have a red flag and say, all right, this is something we're going to talk about, or this is something we'll try and work out, or this is like, woo, no.
Yeah. And I think so many times we see the red flags, but we're like, but look at all these green ones. Green is pretty.
Yes, that's true. But what I say to my clients is, if the person does something that in your heart, if you told your best friend would say, what are you thinking? You have to then say that person's not suitable. So if you are refusing to tell your best friend some of the things that this person does, that is a serious red flag. That's the most serious red flag.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important thing to think about, because I am guilty of that. If I know there's a red flag and I don't want someone to know, I don't tell them. So it's great. That's awesome. This has been wonderful. I always love talking to you. And I think all of this is so helpful to hear. And I can't hear it enough, because I feel like, time passes and it gets away from me and I have to revisit it on a regular basis, just like cleaning my bathroom or cleaning the kitchen,
I think it's so wonderful what you're doing with this podcast. You're helping so many people and they can connect with it on different levels. I think that is so wonderful, because I feel like this part gets forgotten. There's so much about how to, deal with the relationship when you're in it. And now so much about how to live alone successfully. But how do we make that transition when we don't want to be alone anymore? And it's getting harder and harder because it's now super easy to just stay in our homes all the time. I mean, another couple of years, I'll be able to order everything I want online. My only relationship possibility is with UPS.
Hopefully they get some new uniforms. Oh yeah, it's true. It's true. And it's sometimes the littlest things make the biggest difference.
Very true.
And it's taking care of ourselves in our home environment, which is the most sacred.
Yes.
So no, this has been great. Thank you so much for taking the time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to include all of your contact information if people want to reach out to you and schedule an appointment or read a book, because you have 11 of them out. You're on your 12th one now.
12 books out.
12 books out on the 13th?
Be out soon on the 13th book. Very excited. It is Feng Shui for weight loss. And it is about not what you eat, but how you eat, where you eat, and how you store food in your house. And so it's something you can use. Those principles you can use with any diet, any eating plan to help you lose weight more quickly. So I'm really excited. It'll be out soon.
I love it. I love everything that you do. So thank you very much, Donna. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Leanne. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.